Survivor Game Changers implemented a single season twist of when there was a tied vote at Tribal Council, there would be no revote, and unless a unanimous decision was made, it would go straight to rocks. To the audience, and by the looks on their faces, even the cast playing, it was an unsatisfying twist, ultimately failing from a television standpoint and never returning to our screens. But to me, whilst I am happy it did not stay around, I did see things a little bit differently. I saw an opportunity, a way to implement new strategies and ideas to the game that there wasn't the opportunity to do so before. This is analytical strategy, and today I want to touch upon these ideas I have come up with, which really could have been phenomenal television if they were implemented to perfection. So firstly, we need to outline that this twist makes splitting the vote for a majority much more dangerous, and trying to flush idols doesn't become as high of a priority as it would in a regular season, due to the risk of going to rocks straight away. But is that necessarily a bad thing? It gives minority alliances more of a chance to stay in the game, as the majority needs to specifically target the correct individual to go home, rather than just split the votes against two people, to have a far better chance to get the decision correct in the case of an idol being in play. It also on the surface changes things where two equally numbered alliances are duking it out to stay in the game, such as John Cochran wouldn't have had the opportunity to flip in Survivor South Pacific on the revote, which did make for a fantastic television moment. But even if this rule was in play this season, John Cochran could have easily flipped on the first vote, even without knowing who the opposing alliance was voting for. And even if he guessed the incorrect person, he still would have gotten the desired outcome, in a 6 versus 5 versus 1 vote split. So again, it really doesn't change that situation much in the end. Ultimately, it makes majority alliances require to have a closer relationship with the minority, to A, gather intel more effectively, and B, if an idol does get played, it hopefully won't target them if they have a growing relationship with a member of the minority alliance. But I want to look at a couple of specific situations where minorities can really use this twist to their advantage, if the majority alliance did have the numbers to safely split the vote. I think we didn't get to see this twist much in play or really even mentioned this season, with players like Sierra, Tony and Malcolm, who have proven to utilise the theatre of Tribal Council before to their advantage, going home early in the game. Now when I say safely split the vote, the majority alliance has to have an overwhelming numbers advantage, as if it was say 7 in the majority and 3 in the minority, the vote split would be 4 versus 3 versus 3, resulting in a tied vote if the person with 4 votes played an idol, making the split vote redundant as it would automatically go to rocks in that situation. It would need to be at least 9 versus 3 for it to be safe, so you could do a 5 versus 4 versus 3 vote split. However, you will soon learn with this twist in play, any split vote isn't a safe move for the majority. So one pretty unique strategy I would have loved to see would be forcing a rock draw amongst people in the majority alliance if you are in that minority. So with rock draws, we must remember that the people that have been voted for do become immune, and then the rest of the castaways without the immunity necklace or those that have played an idol then become vulnerable to go home. So let's use the tribal from Survivor Cambodia, where Andrew Savage went home as an example, assuming the majority of 9 do split the vote 5-4 on Kelly and Sierra, rather than putting them all on Kelly. In this situation, if it was a 9 versus 3 alliance split, as mentioned previously, these are safe numbers even with this twist in play. It does give the majority the chance to split the vote 5-4, ultimately resulting in a 5 versus 4 versus 3 vote split at Tribal Council. So there's no tie in the votes in this circumstance, so even if they did put 5 on Kelly and she plays her idol, and 4 on Sierra, Sierra would have gone home next. Now let's think outside of the box here if we are in that minority of 3, with this twist being in play. If they were splitting the vote 5 on Kelly and 4 on Sierra, Kelly, Abby and Sierra could tie up the vote 6 versus 6 by voting for each other. Kelly and Abby vote for Sierra and Abby votes for Kelly. This would result in a 6 versus 6 tie, making Kelly and Sierra safe, and making the majority alliance plus Abby go to rocks, giving the minority a huge advantage to get out of that rock draw unscathed. Minority alliances voting for each other turned into a legitimate strategy to force tied votes in this season, as if you do go to rocks and are in the minority, you are more likely to stay in the game by odds. Now let's say there were 10 left in the game and it was a 7 versus 3 alliance split, which usually would result in a 4 versus 3 versus 3 split vote, trying to force out an idol between that minority of 3. The minority could put 1 vote on themselves, and then 2 votes on anyone else, causing a 4 versus 2 vote split, again making one safe and again giving them an overwhelming advantage to stay in the game, as the ones that have to go to rocks don't agree to that unanimous decision. The obvious risk with this is you need to know exactly where the votes are going to pull this off, and in most previous seasons you can have a pretty good understanding of how a majority would split the vote. But with this twist being in play, it does make this strategy far more difficult to pull off, but it is still fun to hypothesize nonetheless. The idea of evening up votes to cause an exact split to force rock draws really appealed to me when I first heard of this game change, but ultimately the contestants understandably were too afraid to split votes for this to happen, resulting in 0 tied votes for the entire season. Making split votes difficult to rely upon does change the game dramatically, but I personally don't think it necessarily makes the game that much worse. It should result in an increased social awareness of the truly elite players, being able to interact with both minority and majority alliances more often. It should result in an increased difficulty of majority alliances to stay together to pick off the minority, as it is far more risky to just target one individual. It should result in a higher level of gameplay, when flashing idols to ensure you are not the target by the minority in the case an idol has been played. In my eyes, it has a lot of potential to be actually a pretty good twist overall from a strategic perspective. And I give a lot of credit to Sarah for really being that person this season who had a working relationship with almost everyone on that beach with this twist in play, and it could have assisted her in taking out the prize this season. But even in saying all of this, in conclusion, I am very glad it did revert back to the original rules, as even though I have mentioned it would require more skill to pinpoint an individual rather than splitting the vote is still a very legitimate strategy in the modern game, and getting rid of that concept increases the ideology of replacing good gameplay with flashy gameplay results in better gameplay. It gives more power to the players with the idols, which in an already advantage heavy era of Survivor probably isn't the correct path to go down. And although seeing the minority vote for themselves to tie up the vote would be an amazing move to see play out, once it had happened in the show once, future majority alliances would then ensure that situation does not arise again in future seasons. I also think there is something really significant about the rock draw in the current game, and increasing rock draws for the sake of it again probably isn't a step in the right direction. Having it as if the players can't decide their fate, the game will decide it for you is a great addition to Survivor, and tweaking that to force more rock draws probably is not the way to go. So I am happy the twist didn't stay, but I also don't think it was as terrible as a lot of people have made it out to be. It was a good experiment, no doubt, but not a good permanent change to the game. So what do you all think of this twist being introduced into the game? Would you have liked to see it play out for longer, or are you happy to see it go? Please let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe if you are enjoying the content, with new videos every single week. This is Analytical Strategy and we are signing out once again. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.